Now, in an interview with Axios, President Trump revealed Iran called him, quote, numerous times to make a deal as the USS Abraham Lincoln now enters Middle Eastern waters. Now, this comes as a new report says the president has been briefed on intelligence confirming that Iran's government is weaker. The Ayatollah is officially in hiding. In a post on X, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham said that evil has to be defeated before urging President Trump not to abandon the protesters of Iran or the Kurds as well. And we're talking about Iraq, Syria in that case. Now, Senator Lindsey Graham is here with more. Senator, I don't know, where do you want to start? It looks like help has arrived, number one. Yeah. Let's start there.
Let's start with the idea that Donald Trump is Reagan plus. He's a man of peace, but not to be trifled with. So what did he tell the protesters? Keep protesting. Help is on the way. I hope he can find a deal to end the bloodshed in Iran. But Iran's the largest state sponsor of terrorism. They've killed probably 30,000 of their people. And here's what I think. When Donald Trump promises you something, he will deliver. To the Iranian people, President Trump has your back. Help will be on the way. I'm not going to say any more. Let me say this about immigration. Tom Homan going to Minnesota is good to turn down the temperature. But you know what is unreasonable is to have sanctuary city policies in 12 states that entice people to come to our country, to avoid enforcing federal law, to increase crime, to incentivize fraud. He's going to be reasonable, but what Donald Trump is not going to do is avoid dealing with sanctuary city policy. I talked to him just a few minutes ago. President Trump is working with me and others to introduce a bill to go to the floor of the United States Senate to end sanctuary city policy forever, to eliminate it. All the 12 states who are doing this will be punished if they don't change. You can never have law and order or sanctuary city policy. You're going to have massive fraud. So to the Republican leaders and Republican colleagues, we control the Senate. We need to have a vote on the floor of the United States Senate enacting what President Trump said he would do, end sanctuary city policy forever. We're going to be reasonable in Minnesota, but we're not going to give up on the idea of fixing the source of the problem, which is sanctuary city crazy laws in 12 states.
Senator, why do we even need another law for that?
You don't.
Isn't it, because I've been saying this for a long time. Isn't sanctuary cities, by definition, aiding and abetting and rewarding law breaking?
Okay. If I can answer your question, yeah. Why do we need another law? Because people ignore the laws on the books. I want to punish states that ignore federal law, that have been on the books. But I got a lot of ideas. I'll unveil them to you soon. Stay tuned on this front. But you have 12 states that ignore federal law that's been on the books for 30 years. It literally incentivizes more illegal immigration. It's a massive invitation to fraud, and it breaks down law and order. What happened in Minnesota is a result of a state ignoring law that's there to help the people. So I promise you, if you're worried about Donald Trump abandoning his promise to end sanctuary cities forever, you need not be worried. As to Iran, if you're protesting, Donald Trump does have your back. I hope he can make a deal. As to Stephen Miller, to my colleagues who believe that you can convince Donald Trump that Stephen Miller is a liability for him, good luck with that. When this clock strikes 12 on the Trump era, there'll be a few people walking out the door with Donald Trump. Stephen Miller will be in that group. So I want everybody to know on the Republican side that Stephen Miller is not the problem. Sanctuary cities is the problem.
Let me talk about this report that the mullahs in Iran are now trying to reach Donald Trump and make some last-minute deal. But they still have, a plan B, which is planes on a tarmac probably filled with, billions of dollars that they have stolen from the people of Iran.
Right, probably so. All I can say is that the 72 Virgin business is going to go through the roof if they keep doing this. Trump is a man of peace, but he's an eye for an eye guy. Ask Maduro, you can't ask a lot of people because they're dead. He's told this regime, it's time for a change, quit killing your people. They're continuing to kill their people. He told the protesters, keep protesting. That's his Ronald Reagan moment. Help is on the way. I believe him. So if you're in the 72 Virgin business, I think business is going to be good if the Ayatollah keeps this up. The people of Iran could be our friend, but the Ayatollah will never be our friend. Stay tuned.
What about the reports that 35,000, potentially up to 35,000 people are dead? Can we confirm that's true? Have they continued the killing in spite of the threat and the promise of President Trump?
Yeah, I think so. I think they've done this at their own peril. They're religious Nazis. They're drunk on religion. They're like the Nazis. The Nazis wanted a master race. The Ayatollah wants a master religion where we bow to it. Yeah, he's killing his people. But I think he'll be out of the killing people pretty soon business. I think a new day is coming for Iran. I see Iran down the road could be a friend of America, but the Ayatollah is evil. And Donald Trump is pretty good at standing up to evil. He's a reasonable man. He's going to be reasonable in Minnesota, but he's going to get to the bottom of sanctuary city policy, which is 12 states ignoring law. And to the Ayatollah and that crowd, you underestimate Donald Trump at your own peril. Stay tuned. To our friends in Israel, you've never had a better friend than Donald Trump.
I tell you what, you know what? It would be nice to have a change. It would be, I'm sure, the natural state of the people of Iran is they want freedom and liberty. And by the way, sanctuary cities and states, get rid of them. I've been saying this for years. We are rewarding law breaking, and these elected officials are aiding and abetting in the law breaking.
Absolutely. Amen. And to Republicans, have a vote on the bill. We're in charge. Let's vote.
Republicans, vote for this bill. I agree.
Yeah.
Senator Lindsey Graham, thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.